I'd like to call the Door County Board of Supervisors meeting to order on Tuesday, September 26th at 9 a.m. Would you please join me for a pledge of allegiance to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Here. 21 present.
We have 21 present. Thank you. Presentation of the agenda. A motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Correspondence. There was a number of correspondence that were included in the packet. There were also additional correspondence passed out to your desk this morning. Public comment. Ken?
Sure. So for public comment, our rules state that we'll start with the individuals in the room first that can address the board. We set the time limit at 3 minutes. If you'd like to address the board, you have, I guess, two options. It depends on your level of comfort. You can use the lectern in the back, or if you'd like to come up to the front, you're more than welcome to do that. We will put on the appropriate mic. Then once we go through the comments of those individuals in the room, we will then ask those individuals online also to speak. So with that, we'll start in the room. If you'd like to speak, what we ask is that you please come up to the lectern and give your name and address, and then you have 3 minutes to address the board. So I'll start. Yes. Yes, please. Again, you can use the front or the back.
Right.
Linda Waite, 4466 Fairway Lane, Sturgeon Bay, Wisconsin. My comment is regarding resolution number 2369 on the flag display. I feel that this resolution sets a clear policy for flag display at our government buildings. And I would respectfully request that the county board approve and adopt this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Carl Whitford, and I live at 2527 County Road, MM. I am here, my purpose is to try to explain from the perspective of a gay man that has lived in this community for 80 years as to how I interpret this attention to ordinance. I was outed as early as 1957 by some of Dan's and my classmates. And I have had quite a few homophobic experiences. In fact, I'm writing a documentary entitled Being Gay in Sturgeon Bay, and the purpose of which is I'm trying to show the gay community and the community at large the struggles we have had to fight and the progress that we have made in the country and particularly in this community. Every time I drive down Madison Avenue these days, I'm teary-eyed to see the welcoming flags and the prosperity of the businesses. I feel that this ordinance is only the beginning of attacks that homophobic haters have. This is not a problem specific to Sturgeon Bay or Door County. We are just a microcosm of what's happening around the nation in regard to the pride flag. And, you know, you may not want to think of it as a hateful thing, but we have to interpret it as such for what we experience. Thank God. I want to thank this community so much. I'm so grateful for where it has come. The Pride designation in June for Sturgeon Bay, the venue at Martin Park, are all wonderful things. We really do appreciate. What I did last week is I sent a copy of a letter that I had written to the county board in 2002, begging for fair and equal treatment against a law enforcement that had been weaponized. I think Dan was probably the only board member on the board at that time. I don't know if you remember that letter, but I do believe the board did take some action. So in the end, I ended moving out of the city, but I did come back later, and I'm so glad I did, because I believe we can really move this community to a much better place. Now, one ordinance is never going to be enough for the haters. I'm concerned about flags on properties, private and business. We have reports of many vandalized flags. One in an incident burnt the flag and almost started the building. Please address these issues. Now,
You have 30 seconds left, please.
well, anyway, don't put this out and give the homophobic haters weaponize and encouragement. Let's be a unit, a community that is for compassion and togetherness rather than division and hate. Thank you very much for listening to me. I'm sorry, I wish I could have gone on further. I got a lot more to say, but someday you'll be able to read my documentary. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak in the room? Yes, so.
My name is Roland Smith. I'm at 2240 Utah Street. I just want to say that the flag is, or at least for the older folks, is something that we should honor, and we should be careful of what we put next to that flag. And we're not here to speak against any organization or any special interest group. We just feel to honor that flag, it needs to stand alone or with what the committee has recommended. We think it's a great recommendation. It should end any further discussions. Otherwise, you're going to be sitting here, you're going to be listening to other special interest groups coming before you with the same thing. So it's a smart decision to pass this resolution as presented. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, please, no remarks or comments when somebody makes a comment, please. Thank you.
Hello, Kathy Greer, 153 South 3rd Avenue. Many of you know me. I am the founder and chair of Open Door Pride. I'm not here to dispute your reasons for wanting this policy at all. I understand, as the gentleman said, that the American flag has a place, and I don't think we're disputing that. I think that this policy, though, is clearly stating we are excluding the pride flag that has flown on the county flagpole. So the question is, though, the policy as it stands in your resolution, if you follow it to the letter, where is it going to stop from there? Where is it going to next step? Municipalities in June when Sturgeon Bay gives us a proclamation celebrating the LGBTQ community, of which there's many that are members, that are wonderful citizens, myself included. We pay taxes. We are part of the fabric of this nation. We, not myself particular, but fought in our wars. And you can't say the LGBT community has not lost life and limb. So then I would consider you reconsider using only military and POW for that reason. So if you want to just have a policy that flies the American flag, go ahead and do that. But what you're really saying here is we're excluding the pride flag, because there's no other flag here that you're talking about. So that's to me the issue. We can agree to disagree, but there's one thing we do agree upon is that we all love Door County. You are all elected officials. I respect every one of you. We might not agree on a lot of things, but I respect you and your right to have one mind here, one mind, and that is to represent all of your constituents. So for that reason, I say, put this back to the table, rediscuss it, come up with something better, but this does not work for everyone. And I think that's what a flagpole should be, to represent everyone. And I thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to address the board in the room?
My name is Nicole Carmody. I live at 1779 Shiloh Road. And I would like to say that I think her argument is difficult because it doesn't represent everyone. And if you start making allowances for one, you must make allowances for all. And so we could have 100 different flags flying on the flagpole. So I agree with the previous gentleman who said, let's honor the United States flag. And I agree, maybe we don't put the military flags underneath it, but let's focus on, as she said, everyone. Not everyone agrees with the same things. So let's just stick with the American flag. So I am in agreement with the proposal that's out. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Sharon Cruz, and I lived at 234 Nautical Drive in Sturgeon Bay. I didn't really prepare anything, so I hope I can speak without going on rabbit trails. I appreciate the resolution as it is worded, and I agree that the American flag has always meant a lot to me by itself. I also agree that flying POW and I think is it the state flag, that is the other one that is okayed, to keep it governmental, as the woman, as has been discussed. I think it's a good idea to not even get into lifestyle. The fact that it seems like we are pointing fingers and wanting to get rid of the gay flag is, or the pride flag is, because really that's the only one that has been on the flagpole with the American flag. And I've never felt good about that. And yet I'm not a condemner of the lifestyle. I would just like to, I think we can live in harmony in this county. As long as we're living with human nature, there are going to be people who are ugly and hateful. And I think we all, in different ways, run into prejudice and poor treatment. And I would never support that for anybody. And so I appreciate the resolution as it's written, and would ask that you would keep it simple as it is written. And my attitude is that it doesn't reflect one way or another on feeling ill will towards anybody. I maybe I'm dating myself, but I grew up with representing the government and through the flag, and I think POWs should be honored as well. Our veterans have given their lives, and families have suffered because we even can fly the flag today. So I would like to see the resolution passed as it is. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Craig Nellis, 4216 Highway 57, Sturgeon Bay. I'm in support of the resolution as it is written. However, if if it doesn't go through as it is written, I belong to a group of fishermen and hunters that have deep roots in this community, and we would also like to have a flag up on the government. I kind of drafted some versions of that. Would you like to see them? Or okay, I can pass them on.
My name is Bill Karras. I live 1112 Bonneview Drive in Sturgeon Bay. And being a veteran myself and being in service with people from, anyway, you know what veterans are as far as different nationalities with all of us. And I'm in favor of this right here because there's so many groups out there that who knows what it is. And being a veteran, I take it more concerned to myself as far as what's all being flown. And that's why I would approve as far as what's going on with the flag amendment as it is, displaying just military flags and the U.S. flag, because that reason alone, because anybody can come here, they don't like something that's going on. Well, I want this flag, I want this flag. Well, for myself, being chaplain of a couple of organizations, I'll just, put the cross, every flag, wherever I can, but that's beside the point. But keep it as it is, keep it simple, because diversity is good, but you don't push it. That's what I like in the military. We all want to work together, because if you're not working together in the military, it's lives are at stake. So that's my comment. Thanks.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the room who would like to speak? Yes.
Good morning, Jesse Simcox. I live at 12252 Highway 42 in Gills Rock. I did write an email to Chairman Engelman about the reasonable resolution. The short answer is by passing this resolution, no one has to know what side of the political spectrum that you fall on, where you stand on social issues. You're supposed to be nonpartisan. You can take emotions out of it. No one has to know where you stand and what your opinions are. I mean, people like to throw around the word common sense. We had a county supervisor say that Progress Pride flag is common sense because it represents all. Does not represent all of us. It represents the very far left of the LGBT community. I'd like to make note that several of us in the LGBT community do not support that Progress Pride flag. It's intrusive. It's overbearing on everyday Door County residents. It's white, heterosexual progressives that are pushing this agenda onto children, where transvestites were scheduled to perform in Martin Park for children. Children were supposed to give them money like strippers. And these organizers of Open Door Pride are left-wing Marxist activists going after your children. They're saying it, they're doing it out in the open. They're writing about it in the county halls. I have friends in Door County that live here. Some of them, just have summer homes up here. And they said, and pardon my language, the county does not have the constitutional right to kiss our ass. So by passing this resolution, you are following you're not picking or choosing winners or losers. No one has to know where you stand. If you do vote no on this resolution, we know where you stand. And it's with the Marxist, radical leftists in the LGBTQ plus P community that want to target children. Most of them aren't even from the Midwest. One of them came up to this podium and she brags all the time about her deep roots in New York City. And let's just see how New York City is going. And she wants to bring that filth here to Door County. So thank you for giving me the podium and letting me speak.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Rockwell, 46 North 6, Sturgeon Bay. As far as the flag resolution, I believe that government flag should be on government flag poles only. And that's it. Excluding no one, but just having, it just makes sense. I have quite a few flags I like myself. So if this does go forward, I'm going to be presenting mine also. I just want to thank you all for taking the time. I say yes. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the room? For the final time, anyone else in the room? Oh, yes, sir.
Sean Grorich, 49 North Madison, here in Sturgeon Bay. Having served myself in service, we were deployed in an area that, in the US, just doing training missions, and there was a youth college that were opposing us being there, doing our training, wearing the flag inappropriately, holding it inappropriately, dragging it on the ground, etc. Our troop was not happy that any of this was occurring. We wanted to defend that flag as we are trained. Things were mentioned within the group as to what they were going to do, how they were going to do it, how we were going to squash this activity. And then our commander said, it is because we fought and fight for this flag that we give them that freedom to show their freedom of speech. So by squashing that freedom of speech, we would only further the problem. The flag is a symbol for what we've done over history. And we respect that, and we respect those that fight for it, as I have. But also being part of the gay community, having had fear of coming out because of what's said, and the things that you see, the nuanced looks, glances, dismisses, the fear of your family not accepting, friends leaving that you've had for years. The gay pride flag is a symbol for us, and what we fight for is that freedom that everybody else takes for granted. Growing up heterosexual. Any parent that you see growing up is asked, oh, is it a boy or a girl, etc. Are they, where's their boyfriend? Where's their girlfriend? You hear the heterosexual expectation regardless of your age. So when you go to cities that are open and accepting and show those flags or stickers in the window of that acceptance, as a gay youth or adult that are still afraid to be themselves, that 1 month of flying a flag in support of the rest of the citizens that are usually dismissed cannot be denied. It just, until you experience the discrimination that happens, it's hard to understand. So I live by the words of my previous commanders, and take a second look and see what that means to those individuals. And yes, they were not treating the flag as respected. But we had to allow those individuals that freedom, because that is exactly what we're fighting for.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the room who would like to speak? Anyone else who would like to speak? For the last time, anyone else in the room? Okay, with that, we will go to those individuals online. When you're online, you can raise your hand and you'll come into the queue. Then I'll do is I'll give you the floor and then you're allowed 3 minutes to speak. So I'll start with Christine Reed. I'm moving you into the queue. You are currently muted. You have to unmute yourself and you have the floor. Christine, you're still muted.
Christine Reed, 597 Sleepy Hollow Drive. I have a couple of topics, but first I want to agree with the gentleman that just spoke. The other subject that I wanted to talk about is follow-up regarding the ordinance that has been requested several times by several people. That topic was discussed in the last LCC, and I'm sure not all of the supervisors are aware of everything that occurred in that LCC meeting. My correspondence was included, and Greg Colthurst was telling the LCC group that the ordinance likely is not necessary because Door County does not have the level of contaminated wells that Kewaunee County has. And I want to emphasize again, we don't want to wait to match Kewaunee County's disaster with contaminated wells. Kewaunee County has had this ordinance in place since 2014. I'm going to quote Greg Colthurst. He said, I called Davina Bones and asked, actually, what is the difference? Or if that ordinance is even applicable anymore for them. He didn't say what Davina's response was. He immediately moved on to a different topic. So after the meeting, I contacted Davina to find out what her response was when Greg Colthurst posed those questions to her. And she responded with a moot response that did not address that. So I contacted her again and asked very specifically, quoting Greg, quote, actually, what is the difference between NR, and quote, between NR 51 and Chapter 30, and quote, is it even applicable anymore for them? And she has not responded to that. That was September 18th, so I would say that she is not going to respond. However, one of the residents in Kewaunee County who worked on the ordinance and also worked on NR 151 responded to me and said that the groundwater protection ordinance is definitely applicable in Kewaunee County because during the time that that ordinance is in effect, which is January through April.
30 seconds, please.
It is an agenda item on their land and water agenda. So that's the answer to that question. It's definitely applicable. We need it in Door County as much, possibly more. S&S is in the process of increasing their herd animal units to more than 3,000 additional. More manures being placed in Southern Door. And now Bray Farms, the announcement just came from DNR this morning. They are applying for a permit for CAFO status also, which is only going to add additional. We need this ordinance in Door County. And
Thank you, Christine, that you reached your time limit, and plus I gave you a little extra time, so thank you for your comments. I'll move down to an individual that's identified themselves as Kim. Kim, I will move you into the queue to talk. You have to unmute yourself. Could you please state your full name and address, please?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. You have the floor.
Okay. My name is Kim Peterson Kruger. I live at 3364 Lake Forest Park Road in Sturgeon Bay. Thank you for letting me speak today. I've been following this story in the Peninsula Pulse, and I believe that the equation of the pride flag with banners of hate groups is a smokescreen for bigotry. On a side note, or perhaps the most important note, Door County is already protected from such potential requests from hate groups or other groups by state statute. I emailed the board earlier today with a screenshot of the Wisconsin Legislature's State Administrative Code. The United States flag and the Wisconsin state flag are already the only flags authorized to be flown on state buildings, which would include the Door County building. As Administrative Rule 2.07 states, the exceptions to this must be directed by the governor. I urge you not to adopt the agenda item 2023-69 today. Thank you very much for my time.
Thank you. Sandy Brown, I'm moving you into the queue. You have to unmute yourself and you have the floor for 3 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Sandy Brown. I live at 811 North 5th Avenue, Sturgeon Bay. I have worked with the DEI committee that you have heard about over the last more than a year. And we have worked on what are the ways that we can be more inclusive in our county. As I said in the committee meeting, our rainbow flag is a welcoming symbol of love, acceptance, and inclusion. I served in the Vietnam War. I have to disagree that the American flag has always stood for all people. We've seen through our history where it has not. But the rainbow flag is inclusive. If people don't like it, I'm sorry to hear that. But I hope that you will take into consideration, as John said, how meaningful it is to a group of people that the American flag has not openly welcomed. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Melanie Jane, I'm moving you into the queue. You have 3 minutes to speak. You have to unmute yourself, please.
Good morning, Melanie Jane, 30 North First Avenue. First of all, I just need to say there is absolutely no truth to the outrageous accusations against the Open Door Pride Group. It's an amazing organization and they have done so much for this community. So I just want to speak to that real quick. I've also heard other people use the words freedom of speech, special interest groups, lifestyle. That is very different from what we are talking about when it comes to the LGBTQ community and the pride flag. That is a protected class of people. Please remember that. They are a protected class of people and they are under attack. And the level at which they are under attack, we should be flying their flag every single day. So as a community, we are saying, we are having the strength, and I hate to use the word courage, but things have become so heated that This is where we're landing today, that we're afraid to fly their flag as a community because of how divisive things have gotten. It's a protected class of people under attack, and we should be supporting them. We just should be doing everything that we can. And flying a pride flag is not condoning anything. It is simply saying we are an open community, we are welcoming, we are accepting of all people. So they are not, again, it is not lifestyle, it is not special interest, it is not freedom of speech, it is a protected class of people. So I urge you to revisit this policy and really take a look at what it means if you were to pass it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is there anyone else who'd like to speak that's online? I'll ask 2 more times. Is there anyone else online who'd like to speak? And for the final time, is there anyone else online who'd like to speak? Seeing none, I'll turn it back over to the chair.
Okay, thank you. Is there any supervisor's response? Vinnie?
Just want to thank the public for commenting and having the courage to share their stories and experiences and letting people know what this agenda item means to them. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. Move on to the approval of minutes of the August 22nd, 2023 County Board meeting. A motion and a second. Is there any changes, additions, deletions, comments, grammatical errors, other remarks to be changed? If not, by voice vote, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. County Administrator monthly report.
Sure. So the monthly report is included. As you'll see, it's getting a little bit shorter, which in my mind is good news. This means some of those projects have been completed and are actually coming off the list. There are still obviously active projects that will spill into next year. The one thing, just as a reminder, we do have our joint meeting of finance and admin tomorrow, which includes the compensation plan and also our insurance. We did discuss that at the retreat, but again, that'll be discussed tomorrow in that joint meeting. That'll be a significant, I guess, action for us because that'll be incorporated into the final version of the budget. So just a reminder on that place in terms of where for that project. Other than that, I have all the updates on the project. So unless there's any other questions, we can continue on.
No questions, all right? Corporation Counsel. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. I put something on the county board's agenda regarding setting an appraised value for a property that the county took through an interim tax foreclosure. The specific property is shown on pages 13 through 15 of the agenda packet. It was a property that the county took, I believe, last year. And what it is the property is limited to a gravel drive that accesses the subdivision. In order to sell that piece of property, we have to first have it appraised. We typically do that through a certified appraiser. We've had this property looked at by 2 appraisers, one which gave a 0 valuation, and the other who said that they could not value this piece of property. The problem with this specific parcel is it really has no use to anyone that could purchase it. It's not buildable. You can't live on it. I suppose you could walk up and down it. It's currently a private road. There is an easement on the parcel to allow people to cross it to get to the subdivision. So why am I coming before the board asking for an appraised value? I don't feel comfortable taking this out for public sale, listing an appraised value of $0. Pursuant to statute, the county board can set an appraised value. And what I would recommend to the county board is there is a fair market value set on the tax bill. That's $300. I would ask the county board set an appraised value for this parcel for sale of tax foreclosed parcel of $300. Now that does not mean that the county has to accept a bid of $300. The way the process works is when we first advertise sale of tax foreclosed parcels, we have to list that the property is for sale and the appraised value. The first go around, the county cannot accept any bid less than the appraised value. If we do not get a bid in excess of the appraised value, the second time around, the county can sell for less than the appraised value, but would have to be approved by committee with reasonings for doing so. So essentially, the reason I'm coming before the board is to establish a $300 appraised value for the property listed, because we cannot find an appraiser that will give it an appraisal for more than nothing.
So Sean, I have a question.
Yes.
On the real estate tax property bill for 2022.
Yep.
It shows an assessed value of 200 and a market value of 300.
To the right, the
Right.
fair market value of $300.
So how were those numbers determined? Where'd those numbers come from?
Will there be an assessor that would assess it at $200? I'm not entirely sure how the fair market value is determined on the tax bills, but it's not unknown that the assessed value is typically lower than the actual value. And to err on the side of caution is why I recommend to the board to adopt a $300 value for this parcel. Again, it's not binding. We don't have to sell it for that amount. We can accept through the process amounts bid greater, amounts bid less, but I would like to request a $300 value.
Okay, just continue my question for a moment. So in the past, property taxes were being paid on this parcel.
So in order to foreclose,
But I mean, prior to foreclosure, there had been taxes paid on the parcel. And at some point in time, the
Yes.
taxes were no longer paid.
Correct.
Went into the interim process, et cetera.
Yep.
So that assessed value in the past has been what was used for the taxes until they were not paid.
Correct.
Okay, got it.
Yep, the assessed value is used to determine the amount of property taxes that are due for that parcel.
Thank you. Vinnie.
Thank you. Can you just recap how this became a parcel to begin with? It looks like a road right of way. So how did someone own the road right of way and then have it foreclosed by the county?
My understanding is the developer created that parcel for access to the subdivision. And then the developer who owned it stopped paying taxes on it. And when that happens, we foreclose it. So clean legal procedure would have been to somehow get that into an association or put it in somebody's hands who is going to pay what are relatively minimal property taxes. But that wasn't done. So when the taxes aren't paid, we foreclose.
My question is, why would we have a parcel like this even in existence, like a right of way on the road?
We don't necessarily control what parcels people create as long as they meet the legal requirements of a parcel. So to say that you could not have a parcel for access, and maybe the developer wanted to sell bordering property, did not want to include that drive in the bordering property. I don't have a good answer for why that was divided that way.
So it's a driveway with no plan to make it into a road once it's developed. That's just what I'm wondering, because wouldn't we want the right of way in the road if it is going to be a development? Or no, we don't, but that's fine. It's confusing to me how that's a parcel, but thank you.
It's a private drive and there is an easement for access. So the tax foreclosure process does not eliminate the easement. That easement would still exist. So whoever would purchase it, the people who live or own property in the subdivision will still be able to drive across that private drive to get to the subdivision. That is not going to go away.
Bob?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So yeah, looking at the map, I mean, it appears this driveway services almost 40 lots, maybe a third, maybe, I don't know, 10 or so, maybe 10 or 15 are already occupied with houses. I guess it's just interesting to me that, like, I mean, those 40 lot owners must have a vested interest in wanting this road. So I guess we're just trying to set a value so we can sell it to somebody who's willing to own it.
Right, and then my recommendation would be to notify those property owners in that subdivision that this is coming up for tax sale, and hopefully one of them would want to purchase
Yeah.
it. I mean, $300 isn't a
Well, and so that's what I'm wondering. I mean, if it's a driveway servicing 40 lots, I mean, $300 seems like we're giving something away. I guess that would be my take on it. I don't know. I mean, not that, you know, we're starting to split hairs, and it's probably a silly thing to maybe get too into the weeds about, but that's just my reaction. It seems like, wow, $300. That roadway is worth way more than that. Thank you.
Well, and that was to respond, it was part of my concern about setting a zero value. And part of it, $300 may not seem like a lot, but whether you buy it or not, the owners in that subdivision are going to be able to access and drive across because there is a recorded easement. So regardless of what happens with the sale, they're still going to be able to use it. So someone's going to have to step forward and say, I'm going to buy it for $300, pay the taxes on it. For what benefit? I could use it even if I didn't purchase it. And that's why we're getting the uncommitted and zero value assessments, is it can still be accessed whether you purchase it or not to those properties.
Dave Engelbert?
Yes, I guess my comments are gonna follow what Sean just said. Having been the assessor in the town of Union for 10 years or so, it wasn't unusual to see a road like this along the homes on the shore. Sometimes it was owned by one person, sometimes by the association. Everyone wanted to use it. No one wanted to contribute to its care. So that's, I think, how this ends up coming here. If it's one person that they try to collect from all the others for the maintenance on the road, owners aren't always willing. I can use it. Why do I have to pay for it? And that's the situation I think we're here. Also back to Dave's comment about the difference between the assessed value and the fair market value. You have to look at the assessment ratio there. So you know, which is at 74%, and you increase that 200, or the 200 is only 74% of the full value, but it's rounded up. So I'm sure that's how the 300s arrived at.
Nissa?
All right, this is probably a totally stupid question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. So let's say the property owners don't want to buy it, hypothetically. Can some random person buy it and have the easement removed, and then it becomes just that little strip of land they own, and not the property owners have no access to it?
I don't believe that they could remove the easement. I believe that easement is going to remain on that parcel regardless of who purchases it.
Okay, so it wouldn't be able to be removed hypothetically.
I don't believe so, no.
Okay.
Anybody else? Questions?
Again, so I guess we're asking for it be a motion to set a value for the property, so that way we can move forward with that.
If the board does not want to set a value, the other option is we move forward with a no appraised value and sell it that way. I just don't feel comfortable doing it.
So we have a motion, a second. What is the motion for, Ken?
Dollars, as the Corp Council suggests.
Okay. Roy, is that your agreement? Okay. Any other questions? We will need to go to the voter board for this, since this is money. This passed by a vote of 21 yes, 0 no's. Thank you. Resolutions. Resolution 2023-65, in memoriam Ronald Berg. Ken?
Chairman, make a motion to adopt resolution number 2023-65 in memoriam of Ronald Berg to the Door County Board of Supervisors. Whereas Ronald Berg passed away on August 17th, 2023, and whereas Supervisor Berg was first elected to the Door County Board of Supervisors and served from April 1963 through April 1972, and whereas Supervisor Berg represented Supervisory District 12, including the City of Sturgeon Bay Wards 4 and 5, and whereas Supervisor Berg served on several committees during his tenure, including Education and Recreation, Welfare Committee, Agriculture and Extension, Executive and Personnel, Civil Defense, Legislative, Zoning, Industrial Development, and Planning. ZIP. I'd have to ask what ZIP stands for. And whereas Supervisor Berg also served as chairperson of the Agriculture and Extension Committee, Executive and Personnel Committee, Legislative Committee, and ZIP. Oh, it's a committee. Okay, I hadn't read that before. Now therefore be it resolved that the Door County Board of Supervisors assembled in regular session this 26th day of September 2023 extend our sincere sympathy to the family of Ronald Berg with this acknowledgement of his dedication and service to the citizens of Door County.
Thank you, Ken. By voice vote, all in favor? Aye. Thank you. Resolution 2023-66 in memoriam of Jay Zahn. Todd?
Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity to present this resolution 2023-66 in memory of Jay Zahn. To the Door County Board of Supervisors, whereas Jay Zahn, former county treasurer, passed away August 28, 2023, and whereas Jay Zahn served as treasurer for Door County from January 7th, 1991 until his retirement January 3rd, 2021, and whereas with 30 years of service, Jay Zahn held the distinction of being the longest serving treasurer of Door County. Now therefore be it resolved that the County Board of Supervisors assembled in regular session this 26th day of September 2023, extend our sincere sympathy to the family of Jay Zahn with this acknowledgement of his dedication and service to the citizens of Door County.
Thank you, Todd. We'll have motion a second by voice vote, all in favor? Aye. Thank you. Resolution 2023-67, approval of the 2024 Youth Justice Innovation Grant, Health and Human Services Department. Nissa?
I'd like to make the motion to approve the resolution number 2023-67, approval of the 2024 Youth Justice Innovation Grant, Health and Human Services Department.
We have a motion. Somebody please second. Thank you. Any questions? Explanation required? If not, we'll go to the voter board. That's passed by a vote of 21 yes, 0 no. Resolution 2023-68, authorize the application for an acceptance of financial assistance for prairie planting. Roy?
I move to approve resolution number 2023-68, authorize application for an acceptance of the financial assistance for prairie planting.
Bob?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to acknowledge the importance of this effort to plant native plantings at a couple of the different county properties. As we may be aware, there's a lot of birds and insects that are struggling these days because we plant a lot of non-native plants in our landscapes, and we have to recognize, following Doug Tallamy's good advice, that bringing nature home and basically thinking of our homes and our businesses and our county properties as part of a national park that we need to grow and sustain our native communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Anybody else? We will go to the voter board. That's passed by a vote of 21 yes, 0 no. Thank you. Resolution 2023-69, display of flags on Door County property. Roy?
Move to approve resolution number 2023-69, display of flags on Door County property.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. Vinnie has a motion to amend. Would you like to?
Thank you. I'd like to amend Resolution 2023-69 to include that all Door County facilities with a flagpole will display on the flagpole the Pride flag during Pride Month. I can go into my description as to why. Briefly, I will. Some of the things we heard in public comment, I'd like to address a little bit with that, but I think it's an example for our youth and adults in the community of being welcoming, accepting, and caring for others. I think it's a sign of respect for the struggles that happened in the 1969 Stonewall riots, which is how the Pride Month came to be. I think it's different than allowing other flags on the flagpole because it has gone through 3 presidential executive orders already at a federal and national level since 1999 to celebrate Pride Month, and this is one way to do that. It's also been Executive Order 204 from the Wisconsin governor to display the Pride flag at the state capitol and on all other state buildings, which is what one public comment was about. I'm not sure if the legality of that is true, but if it were true that all state buildings need to display the flag as described, then Executive Order 204 would say the county buildings, if they are considered state buildings, should be flying the flag already based on that executive order. I'm not saying that that is the case, but going on that same line of argument. So that is my amendment. If anyone would like to second it, thank you.
You do have a second. There's a motion
Good.
and a second.
All right, thank you.
Any other discussion on the amendment? Bob?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think it's an important amendment. I appreciate Supervisor Chomeau bringing it forward. Bringing this issue up at all is just emphasizing division. We have enough division in the world, and making more division just seems counterintuitive, and it's I don't follow the line of logic. By trying to create some sort of a rule system, which again, it seems like and I guess I'd like to hear from, legal counsel, regarding these state statutes. It sounds like, if that's accurate, state statutes may already give us the direction we need. And otherwise we're just creating unnecessary bureaucracy, which then is like it's all this like following and got asking a lot of questions. I think, most people, myself included, we appreciate smaller government, not bigger government. And, making ordinances like this just make bigger government. Every one of us in this room, every one of us has a family member or more, coworkers, neighbors, who are part of the LGBTQ community. And what has had to happen over literally centuries of persecution. I mean, the future is not closeted. The future is not suppressed. The future is not discriminated. We are not going back to the era of persecution. All of us have to do a little soul searching to think about those people in our lives. And we all have gay people in our lives, loved ones, neighbors, coworkers. Supporting diversity moves us towards happiness. It moves us towards wealth. Doing otherwise moves us away from happiness and away from wealth. I think we all need to do some heartfelt reflection on what kind of community we want to be. I've gone back and forth on this. I kind of was seeing the argument that, well, if we have it defined and it's just those flags, well, maybe that somehow makes it simpler. I disagree. I had a conversation with someone, and what really, I was questioning how to vote on this and how to move forward with this. And when this person told me, pride flag saves lives. And I thought, well, wait a minute.
Mr. Chairman.
Please, no comments and remarks.
There's a bubbler over there if you'd like to get a drink of water for the dryness in your throat.
Good. Glad you're prepared. When people, so that's when it hit me that, wow, like certain people may not feel it's important, or they're already gay and they're okay with not having the pride flag. That's fine. But people and kids and young people, especially because we're teenagers and we're trying to figure out our lives and figure out where we're at in our life and where we're headed. And when that persecution exists, that stress is enormous. And suicide rates among gay and trans people is way off the charts. And that's not okay. That is not okay. We should not be accepting that in our community. And by doing the simple action of flying this rainbow flag, I mean, why are we trying to ban a rainbow? It's one of the most beautiful things we experience in our lives. It's a rainbow. It's beautiful. Why can't we live and have that beauty exude from our hearts enough to love everybody and not care so much about, it's just, I don't know, we don't need the divisiveness. And the pride flag, it represents welcomeness. And again, it leads us towards happiness and wealth, not division. I support Vinnie's amendment. Nissa?
Thank you. One of the commenters earlier said inclusivity is good, but don't push it, which is an oxymoron if anyone knows what that word means. It wasn't that long ago that we passed a resolution about inclusivity and equity, and that means for all, not just a few people in the county. You know, I was a teenager in the county in the 90s, and exactly 0 people came out in the county from any of the schools that I know of, people I met. And let's face it, we all know people. If you grow up here, you all know people from multiple schools because of how the county is and size wise. That being said, there's quite a few people that were around my age or my age that came out as adults, one of them being a very, very good friend of mine. And I asked him once, would you have ever come out in high school? He said, absolutely not. And I knew the reason why is because he would have been physically hurt a lot. It wasn't till he was an adult and was more comfortable not being in a school setting day to day to be able to come out. And the fact that people still a lot of times do not come out in the county until after they leave the county is a concern. Why make people feel unsafe purposely? I don't understand that. Now the same person, the same friend I'm very close to, he will call me, text me, or post on Facebook about different times in this county where he has felt either unsafe or maybe not physically attacked anymore, that threat, but emotionally attacked. And he's made posts about how he doesn't feel like he belongs, which honestly pisses me off because he does. I get that some people don't like the flag for their own reasons, and that's a them problem, and they can deal with that in their own ways. But that doesn't mean that the majority of people have an issue with it. Thank you.
Dan?
Yes. I sort of started this off mainly because we have no policy. And I wanted to form a policy, and with Sean, we came up with this policy. You got to remember, this is about the American flag, nothing else. It's about flagpoles that are owned by the county on county property, nothing else. We're not against the flag. In fact, I mentioned that at the meeting that maybe someone wants to raise a Confederate flag or someone wants to raise the Ku Klux Klan flag. Never once did I ever mention anything about the pride flag. I'm not against the pride flag. But I'm supporting this American flag. That's what we put those poles up for. We put them up to fly the American flag, the state flag, and the county flag, and that's it. And that's what I think. Any flag hung below the American flag dilutes the importance of the American flag. Bud Combs at the meeting of the highway kind of stated it very quickly in one sentence how important the American flag is, and that's what this resolution is about.
Thank you. Vinnie?
Thank you. I respect your comments, but I would disagree. To me, putting the flagpole up on a county property is about displaying pride for many things, not just for the American flag. So I think we have a really good national track record, a state track record of showing a lot of support for celebrating Pride Month. So my resolution or my amendment would be to have that up for a month during Pride Month, which there are many precedents already set throughout the country, throughout our state, and other places in Wisconsin that are on board with that. And to me, the symbol of the flag is not or the flagpole is not just for the American flag. I would feel very proud to have the pride flag also right next to that during Pride Month. So thank you for any support.
Todd?
Yeah, my comments will be short. I think the conversation and the amendment that Vinnie has offered respectfully does exactly what the resolution was intended not to do, was to create some sort of a special flag orientation for a certain period of time. And I think Dan's resolution was intended to kind of clean the way for that, to just simply make it the American flag. I think we're going to keep digging at this back and forth here for quite some time. If we allow it, I'd ask you, Mr. Chair, to call the question, but I would like to be sure that we understand, because oftentimes in my last couple of years on the board, when it comes to an amendment, we got to be sure we understand what a yes vote means and a no vote means. So basically, a yes vote for this amendment changes the original resolution to direct the county to fly that flag, that the pride flag that Vinnie is referring to for that month of June, which I think is the exact opposite of what the original resolution was intended to do. A no vote brings the resolution that has came through committee back to the board for an approval or denial. And I suggest that we go about that business. Thank you.
Thank you. Ken?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I say the Pledge of Allegiance every time we come here for this meeting. And I've said it many times throughout my lifetime. Liberty and justice for all. You can't say it any better than that. That's for everybody. Liberty and justice for all. Not separate groups to get special treatment. Everybody is equal here. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we will go ahead to voting for the amendment. What do you have for the amendment?
Vinnie could read it. I would have to go back to
All right, go ahead.
video and get it from there.
Sorry.
All Door County facilities with a flagpole will display on the flagpole the pride flag during Pride Month. And it's not meant to change the intent. The intent was to have a policy about the flagpole. This is a part of that policy. So, thank you.
Okay, so we're going to go to the voter board for this is to vote for the amendment for the pride flag to be flown on the flagpoles for the month of June. Correct? Okay. Great. That's still a majority vote of 7 yes, 14 no. So we're back to the original resolution. Okay. Okay, so we're back to discussion on the original resolution. Bob?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could we get maybe an update or not update's the wrong word, but just someone can explain what's the procedure now and how have things been for decades with county properties and county flagpoles, and who makes the decision and that sort of thing.
I guess I can defer that to me, but there is no formal policy that was asked, and we explained that there was no policy. So traditionally, what we've done is Wayne manages all of our facilities, and he usually maintains all of the poles. So I know in regards to the pride flag being flown, that was done by the governor's order. He was following the governor's order at that point in time. So we got questioned on that portion of it in terms of how do we do that? And we specified that we did not have a policy, and then that's why we've gotten to this point. But in general, Wayne has been managing our facilities and managing the poles through his maintenance staff.
Right. Bob?
Do we have any clarity on are county buildings considered state property?
County buildings and county property are not state property. They're not state buildings. And when the administrator referenced the order, the executive order, the last one I saw was a recommendation to counties and municipalities, that the orders would apply to state property. But there has not been, that I have seen, a direct order by the governor that counties, municipalities shall fly a specific flag. It is an executive order to the state, but it's a recommendation as to counties, municipalities. So is it?
If the governor makes a proclamation, is it still up to the county to decide?
Yes. Now I would have to look if the governor ordered every county in the state to fly a specific flag. That I need to look into, but under the resolution as it's written, if that would happen, we would comply with that order. That very last, provision does allow for that, but it hasn't happened as of yet. But that would be a larger question on, does the governor have the authority to order a county to fly a specific flag? And that would take
Precedence. And so regardless of any resolution we had on the books, we would follow the governor's orders if it was written in that way. Or the legislature, or whatever, I guess the governor would have to sign off, but whether it's the legislature or the governor, however they work together to do, or whatever, if they pass something that was, I guess, enforceable, then we would fly whatever flag they told us to fly.
yes, the resolution as it's written does allow us to fly. I did not want a situation where we have a policies that says we can't fly a flag and an enforceable order that says we have to, and trying to figure out which we're going to violate. So when I drafted the ordinance, I did draft it so that any enforceable requirement on the county to fly a specific flag would create an exemption for that flag.
Thank you for that clarification.
Dan?
Well, I was gonna say, that's the purpose of this whole thing, was to put forth a policy. We didn't have any that I was aware of, so that's what started this all off.
Vinnie?
Can I just ask the timing? It seems like this policy was in response to not wanting to follow the governor's order or suggestion, if it wasn't an order for counties, because it hasn't come up until now. So if we were okay with a county employee managing what would go on the flagpole and following what the state governor suggested or recommended for the county, why now do we need a policy that specifically doesn't allow that by even getting to the detail of one flag? If there's one pole, it's just the American flag. If there's two poles, do we have other examples or places, other counties that say we can't put more than one flag on a pole? Or it just seems very prescribed to specifically not put the pride flag on the pole. And I'm not trying to make people upset saying that. It just, the timing and the way it's written really limits that specific governor's order, in my opinion. And I don't agree.
The resolution you have before you was largely taken from a Kenosha County executive order. Now they have a county executive, so they do things a little different, but that is one example of a county that they did. And it's very close to what Kenosha County executive order was.
Wasn't there executive order put the pride flag up? I just read it this morning. Wasn't that what they ordered? The executive?
The Kenosha County was very similar to the resolution you had before you, to only fly state, federal, and county flag on flagpoles. Now there may be other counties that do have resolutions to fly specific flags, but we're not at least on an island of nobody's done this before.
So one, okay.
There's one that I'm aware of. Yes.
Okay. Elizabeth?
My question's for Sean as well. So if the county doesn't have a flag policy and then a group puts forward a flag request and the county does not fly it, but flies another flag, could the county face a discrimination lawsuit?
Yes, we could face a lawsuit. Would that be successful? I don't know. The flagpole at the county here, we don't allow anyone who wants to raise a flag on the flagpole. It's not thrown open to people to display whatever they want. The flagpole is specifically county, whatever the county would decide to raise on a flagpole. So the First Amendment issues are not as easy as a yes, no. Now, would there be arguments? Of course, that we as a county are flying one flag and not another. But, you know, would we be susceptible to being forced to raise flags that we wouldn't want to as a county? My argument would be no, we would not be forced to, but it would have to be something that we'd have to take into account on, you know, now we're picking and choosing as a governmental entity and what we raise as flagpoles other than governmental flags, position flags.
Discrimination type lawsuit.
And I don't know that it would be necessarily discrimination, but it is going to be a equal rights, a speech related lawsuit.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Dave, Enigo?
Thank you. Actually, this might be for Sean as well. I have lots of questions about this, and I'm gonna narrow it down to a very few if possible. While the group of 21 here and various other individuals recognize this ordinance or this resolution is written with the intent of Door County of Door owned property, that's not what it says, and could easily be construed as being county-wide. If you use it in a different mindset, it could be read that way. Why the word stationary, specifically flagpoles? Why is stationary in there?
As I said, it was largely written off of the Kenosha County Executive Order, and I believe the stationary flagpole would be, vehicles on county property. People would fly flags on vehicles, and could we stop someone from parking in a county parking lot with a flag on their vehicle? I don't think so. What we really wanted to focus on here was our flagpoles, the flagpoles on the county property. So that's why that language is in there. There are fixed flagpoles.
Okay, I've read this over and over again. If I interpret this correctly, if you had a single flagpole, I'm working on the presumption that's recognized specifically this is Door County owned property. Clearly, in my mind, it does not say that. And there are people on this planet that will actually read it this way and then go after other directions. If I read this correctly, then if we have a single pole out in front of some property somewhere, the only flag that can be, you cannot apply a combination of a United States, state, and county flag on that single pole. That's the way I'm reading this.
But that's correct. That's the way it's written. If there's one flagpole, it's the American flag, and there's the option to fly the POW/MIA flag underneath the United States flag.
Okay, so, and I'm being somewhat anal. It doesn't state which flag is higher than the other, because those of us that have lived here long enough know there's several different locations where people like to fly a different flag higher than the United States flag for multiple reasons. But that's private property, fortunately.
But for the POW/MIA flag, it says it.
No, I'm not referring to that one specifically. I'm referring to like the United States, state and county flag orientation that historically the federal is highest, right?
Yep.
But there are places throughout this county that have occasionally been in different pattern with an intentional statement, but that's also private property. Help me understand why POW/MIA flags are special. Why are they elevated to a federal level of quality? Where is their statutory authority or something to that effect? I'm trying to.
Yeah, I don't have the answer why POW/MIA flag is treated differently than other flags.
Because to me that's a group, right?
It could be seen that way. Yes. Now I believe we do fly the POW/MIA flag, and that's why it's addressed in this resolution, is because it's something that we do fly.
So by that definition, we should also address the pride flag as well, because we have flown that one.
Well, and that would be up to the county board. I don't make
Yep.
decisions. I mean,
You're the closest to having the technical answers to my questions.
Yeah.
Just one thing in the POW of the flag, though, you have to remember these are both the one outside our building here and our actual memorials. So just to give context of that, and those are, we have I guess we are formally recognized by the state through the federal government to have a Department of Veteran Affairs. So I guess I consider that, I'm not taking aside anything, but I'm just trying to give context to your question, that that's a state mandated program that we have that's also federally mandated. So there's a little bit of different context.
And there's the context I'm looking for, an explanation as to why a flag that was created 60 years ago was something that has suddenly got a value to it. Where did its value come from and its logic behind being required to be there? A little bit of my knowledge places at the same answer, much like the city of Sturgeon Bay has, you know, the memorial there and that, right? Personally, I can't, I don't like the way this thing is worded at all, and I can't vote in favor of it. But it bothers me tremendously that we did not have a policy many a year ago to this effect. Thank you.
Claire?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to add my voice to my fellow supervisors who, while I appreciate this resolution, Supervisor Austad, I do agree that it just seems divisive in an already extremely divisive world. And these days when an oppressed group can be, you know, maligned and sometimes murdered, and one woman was murdered for flying the pride flag, to me that speaks volumes. And I think we as a community owe it to everyone to celebrate our inclusiveness and acceptance of everyone. And I would be voting a hearty no against this resolution. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Vinnie?
I get to talk a lot today. So I'm trying to understand the intent of not wanting to follow a state and federal executive orders to include the pride flag. So, I mean, it's been done multiple times. I did look up Kenosha again. That was done in 2021 and then undone in 2022, which again, I mean, would we entertain an amendment to follow our federal and state executive orders for what flags are acceptable or promoted to be flown? I mean, this isn't just someone's random idea. This has gone through a lot of oversight and a lot of look at both a state and federal level and said that this is important enough that this should be happening. So I'm trying to understand why we as a county think that it isn't. And we want to stop that by creating a policy that doesn't allow it. So if anyone who is in favor of the policy could explain that, I would appreciate it.
Anybody else? Bud?
It was mentioned at one of the committee meetings that what if we don't have a policy? And what I remember being said was, we'll use common sense and do what's right. Well, now if we don't have a policy and now we start putting up whatever flags, who's going to determine what's right? That'll be the next debate if we don't have some kind of a policy or guidelines to go by.
Thank you, Bud. Okay. Vinnie, you have a motion to make?
New one. Can we amend the policy to, and please advise on how this could happen, to consider when there is a federal or state executive order that recommends or suggests or requires any of those options, a flag on a public building flagpole? Can that be added to this, that would be an exception to the 1, 2, 3 flagpoles? And then also, what if there's a 4th flagpole? That's not in here. So if there's a 4th, can that go to any flag? I mean, that's not part of my amendment. It's a question, but the amendment would be, can we take into consideration writing in there an executive order from the governor or the president of the United States to include a flag on a flagpole? It should at least be considered and not just be written out of our policy right away.
The answer is yeah, yes, absolutely. I mean, the resolution could be amended that Door County will follow executive orders from the federal government applying to federal land, or executive orders from the state applying to state land. Absolutely. I mean, there's nothing prohibiting us from doing that.
Okay. Is there any discussion on the amendment? Rodney?
So I guess if you have that amendment, you'll have to decide if the federal and the state conflict, which one has priority. If you're going to word it that way, would be my opinion.
Dave?
Back to the procedures. So the state put a recommendation, did not require it.
Well, it was required of state.
Correct, own property, right? But made a recommendation to the lower level governments to do the same thing. So to this amendment, is the intent to follow the entity that put out the statement, or is the intent, because it's meaningless if you simply follow it, because then the county can make the decision to not do it if the state statement says that they don't have to do it. My comment, what I'm trying to get to is the intent of the amendment to be that we will do the same as the state, do the same as the federal government, because if you just follow the resolution, and you're not accomplishing anything.
Fine. Yeah, the intent is to not write out of our policy the possibility of following an executive order from a governor or from the president. I mean, that's what we would be doing now, like that we are not putting a single place on any county property where any other kind of flag could ever be flown without changing the policy. So I think, I mean, and no one has still said why they don't want to follow these executive orders. Nobody in the room has offered that up. So I think that there is a point in having that discussion every time it comes up as an executive order for any kind of flag that is in addition to the American flag. So if we're saying, if it's not a geographical flag as the state and county and, US flag is, it's a discussion we should have. We shouldn't just not answer the question and then eliminate it from a policy as even being possible. So however I can word that in an amendment, it should be considered and not just be written out. If we pass this now, it's written out that it can never be done unless the policy's changed.
Okay, I just want to clarify something because I'm a little confused. Okay. The very last, I'm looking at the resolution, the very last paragraph, does that not say what you're saying? The last be it further resolved?
Yeah, I don't understand what the last paragraph is saying, I guess.
Okay.
What?
If it's mandated, but I guess what I'm saying is this is recommended, but we couldn't even consider a recommendation. If we pass this policy without changing the policy, we can't even consider an executive recommendation because this is a mandate. So, yeah. I'd rather have the open discussion as they come up instead of just writing it off now and then it's never talked about again. That's too much power given in that policy, in my opinion.
Dave?
I do interpret that sentence, that paragraph, as you are implying. My comment was, is her an effort for the amendment to mandate we follow the state's thing rather than a committee deciding on whether or not we're going to follow it? That's what I'm trying to understand. This answers precisely the first one, which is, in theory, property could have a meeting and say, yes, we're going to follow that for that, whatever recommendation is, or no, we're not going to. So that answers that part, and it does not need to be altered for that. There's no motion needed in my mind to do that. My question was whether or not the intent was to force, we will follow the state's thing rather than choosing to or not to.
So if I understand, because I asked a clarifying question, Vinnie's amendment would say, yes, we would have to follow what the order was.
But the order says it was a choice, the last one.
We're talking about a recommendation and mandate. a mandate we would have to follow based on what this says, because we can't create a policy that won't allow us to follow a mandate. So my point is we shouldn't create a policy that won't allow us to consider a recommendation, which this does. It says, no, there's no possibility unless it's mandated that we could even disagree and put a different flag up, which I think that's not good.
Any other questions, comments? Vinnie?
Oh, no, I'm trying
Sorry.
to cancel. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Dave Engelbert?
Well, I think the resolution as presented is the right way to go about this. Whether the president or the governor, let's recall back to the COVID situation, and the governor recommended things that was all challenged, went to court and the whole 9 yards. I think some of that becomes partisan, and it shouldn't be. This is our policy as recommended, and I think it's time that the county does have a policy in place to avoid the questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we're gonna go to the voter board for the amendment.
What exactly? I'm not sure what language we're using.
My understanding is that if the state government, state of Wisconsin, would mandate state property or recommend that counties fly a specific flag, that the county would follow that recommendation or mandate. So it's not only a mandate, it would also be recommendation, or if the state is only applying to itself, that we would follow that kind of thing. It's same for the federal level.
Okay. You said? I'm sorry, Todd?
Yeah, and just kind of making sure we're square away with this. So a no vote to this amendment brings us back to the original amendment as came through the committee. A
Correct.
yes vote would allow for us to vote on what Vinnie has amended it to do. So a no vote brings us back to Dan's original proposal. Just keep everybody straight. Dan?
How is that her motion to amend different than the last be it further resolved? How's that different?
It's different because the state the last executive order regarding the pride flag put out by the governor of the state of Wisconsin applied to state property.
Correct.
And in that case, I think what Supervisor Chomeau was saying is that we as Door County should follow that executive order. If the state is mandating it for state properties, we should also follow that executive order.
That's the way I understood it. Okay, we're gonna go to the voter board. The amendment has failed in a vote of 14 no, 7 yes. So we're back to the original. Is there any final comment on the original before we go to the voter board? Okay. Ready? That's passed by a majority of 14 yes, 7 no. Thank you. Ordinance 2023-4, speed zone on County DK. Roy?
Well, thank you. I move to approve ordinance number 2023-04, speed zone on County DK. I'd like to call on our highway commissioner at this time to explain it a little bit more.
Good morning.
Morning.
We'll come up here so everyone doesn't have to turn around the other way. This is kind of a topic that's come up for several years through the highway and highway facilities committees. The intersection at Renard's Cheese and DK and the 4-lane highway, mostly safety concerns. It came to light again after our last, a couple meetings ago, when the question was raised after a recent accident at that intersection about the speeds, the stop zones. And we involved the Highway Safety Committee through the state. And the state looked at it with the implementation of a J-turn or compressed U-turn at Stone Road and Highway 57. That the amount of traffic trying to access the 57 highway northbound was going to be multiplied greatly because of the people not wanting to go to Stone Road, having to go south along the highway for 3/10 of a mile and then cross over to go north, that people were going to shortcut it. And at that intersection, 8.5, 9 months out of the year, we're talking school kids, school buses, people dropping off kids to school, picking them up, and also the Renard's Cheese traffic. So we had a meeting. Ken and I sat down with the DOT and with Renard's, and in reference, the time that the 4-lane highway was put in, that intersection was put in for Renard's Cheese. Now that's before both mine and Ken's time. I'm sure some of you were present at that time when that was implemented in those negotiations. So that's why they were at the table also. And the state, and looking at the situation, has agreed that they will make that a safer intersection, maybe left in, right out scenario. So it's basically, it's a lot like Utah Street, down Sturgeon Bay, Alabama. What we're trying to do at the BB Gordon Road intersection is to lessen the amount of traffic, basically young people crossing southbound lanes of traffic to go northbound. What this is going to force the traffic to do is, if you want to go northbound, you're either going to have to go south to Stevenson Pier or north to Stone Road and use the J-turn, where there is room to stack traffic that wants to access the highway. And getting back to the speed zone part of this is the state is willing to do all those improvements with the Stone Road improvement at no cost to us. But their recommendation was that we look at lowering the speed from Stone Road up to this intersection because it's just under 0.6 of a mile. And by the time you would get up to what is now a 55 zone, to back off to a stop sign makes that a pretty short distance. And what they're going to allow, what they would like to allow, is for traffic leaving the highway, exiting the highway to DK, to have the through fare to be able to come off the highway, go north or south, to stop the other traffic, simply because there's no room on that small intersection. If you get 2 or 3 cars backed up at a stop sign at DK, it does impede the traffic if you're trying to go out either north or south along the southbound lanes of the highway. For quite a ways, it backs traffic up, and there is a vision problem there. So by stopping the traffic on DK, allowing the state traffic to come off the highway, go onto that exchange and go north or south, and then let the other traffic go through, was their request. And then the speed zone right now is 45. So I'm going to say about midway between the school and Renard's Cheese presently. And then it goes through just about to the end of the school property is where it changes back to 55, which then does enter a county road intersection with County K, a trailer court, a bus stop, a curve, and then comes our Stevenson Pier intersection. So the recommendation was to lower that speed to 45 from Stone Road to Stevenson Pier. Again, mostly because of the amount of traffic and because of what the traffic type is, mainly school traffic, from September till June. Basically it, and the reasoning therefore.
Say, can you explain on the chart that I'm looking at? I'm just confused by one of the stop sign. Maybe I'm looking at it wrong. There's a stop sign, it's labeled number 5 on the chart. Is that a stop sign on the left-hand turn of the highway?
No, it's a stop. It's a stop for the traffic that'd be going, I guess, north, east.
So,
DK.
that would be the stop sign for traffic.
This is
Traveling north. It's kind of out of position a
Out
little
of
bit.
position would be at this white line.
It would be for
Okay.
the
Okay.
traffic heading
Okay.
north to stop at that.
Okay, I was looking at the white line
Right.
here.
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay.
Yep, yeah, just a couple of
Yep.
hands. Yes, I can. It'll just take me a second. So maybe Mr. Fisher can go first.
Ken, go ahead.
I was gonna ask the same thing. I want an explanation of where those stop signs are. You know, I just can't tell exactly where they're situated and facing.
Presently, you have a stop sign. If you leave the highway, the 4-lane highway, and you go north to DK, you have a stop sign to stop at DK presently. There's one coming out of Renard's Cheese. Okay, and you have the one on the south side of the 4-lane coming off of Cloverleaf Road. What we would have in this scenario is the one that's coming out of Renard's Cheese, you'd have one for northbound traffic on DK, one for southbound traffic on DK, and then you would have the one from Cloverleaf trying to cross to go north.
Turning into a 4-way stop.
Correct.
No, I'm sorry. Not
Through.
Yes, this stop sign is for the
Heading north.
the white line.
Off of A line go south on highway, stop. It wouldn't be able to.
Yeah, it's not a, it's not a direct route. It's like a dual or a. So this traffic would have to stop, so this would have to stop sign, it would be a stop sign. This support would be a stop sign, because it would have to stop. This stop is presently, this would be an added one, this would be an added one, this would be added one, this one would be, this one is still. We get that present major over.
Okay. Am I still up that I can ask questions? Cause
Go
I
ahead.
don't understand. So if I'm heading north on DK, I don't stop. I just go right through.
You're gonna stop, you're gonna get a stop sign here, and you need to stop. You have to stop here, you'll have to stop here, you'll have to stop here. This traffic, because there's no place for a good line of sight, this traffic is gonna come in, they're gonna be able to go through.
They're gonna go heading south. They're gonna go through and just go right. Or is there another,
If they come in here, or if they come in here.
Yeah.
This traffic leaving the highway, you'll be able to go north or south or across.
without stopping?
Correct. Stop here, here, and there. Simply because there's no room to stack traffic.
Mhm.
And if they line up here and you're coming out here, you cannot see past or see how you're coming. Now, in the past, that's where these have gotten hit. Cars stacked up here, they come across, they get hit here. So, most of the accidents have been here, and up the hill. Now, data-wise, there's probably more accidents here, you can see, and there has been a death here compared to the Stone Road intersection.
You just took it off.
It's a hard thing to get out of.
I thought it was fine.
So heading south, you could just come, you could just go right there and make a U-turn and go. You could just make a U-turn and go up on DK. And you can come down and make a left and not stop.
Correct.
Traffic from the highway, exiting the highway will not stop. All the other directions will stop. Hopefully though.
Okay, so going
Hopefully.
north could do the same thing. Go right across the intersection.
Wait for traffic here, of course.
Yep. And
People will not be able to cross here. They will have to go someplace. Or they'll have to go over to which, in communications with the school advised most of their buses to be presently. But anyone who does travel that road, the school time, there's a lot of students that still use this. A lot. There's a lot of parents who drop off small children use this intersection a lot. The most severe accidents have been either before or right after school as those people are using that intersection. So it's kind of a fast thing that came up, but the reason being is the state's trying to implement this work, all this work, into the Stone Road J-turn, and they needed to get it in project development, but that project is supposed to start, I believe, in it's coming soon, so they need to get it in the United States. They have agreed to do the work here, and here, wherever needed. With that project, again, our cost would be our manpower and to make and install stop signs, the speed zone signs, speed zone push flag for warning, that type of thing.
I know what people are probably also questioning too, because they're gonna say, well, people don't know they're doing. If you're familiar with a lot of intersections, they'll have like traffic from this does not stop. We could do something similar. So on this stop sign here and this stop sign here, you could place stop sign, you could place a placard below traffic from highway does not stop, or traffic from that segment. That's what they're worried about. They're worried about people coming in here so fast, flying through, that someone going through this intersection is going to get T-boned here, which I can understand that. We had that discussion with the DOT. It's just a matter of how the traffic's flowing and the signage. And again, it's a higher risk with the traffic stacking now and stopping at this existing stop sign than I think what you guys are implying in terms of people stopping here, trying to go forward and then getting T-boned. Again, if they're coming off this section here, turning in. So we can place a stop sign plus a traffic from the right does not stop. So that way they're aware of that. So I know what you're getting at in terms of questions. Yes.
We will also, we will also tape the posts like you've seen on several of our intersections that are pretty questionable and we have a lot of accidents. Well, like the stop signs, will red tape from the sign to the ground, reflective red tape. Or if there's a yellow sign, we use the yellow tape to make it highly visible to anybody who is using it. Now, with this implementation, if it goes forward, we would make those changes on our end as soon as possible, so the traffic is kind of aware of it, or the other improvements take place, and hope to educate the people on the change that would be coming, so that we're not learning two different systems at one time.
Okay, a lot of questions.
We have some more
Chairman?
questions. Yep. Nancy?
Chairman?
Sorry.
Do I still have the floor here? My name's still up there and I got interrupted and other people were asking
sorry.
questions and I never got a chance to finish.
Okay, go ahead, Ken. You're still up.
Thank you. All right. This was decided at the last facilities and highway and facilities committee meeting that I came late to. I was going to a school function with my grandchildren, so I came in late. I think that's what happened there, that this was decided just as I came in. So I didn't get a chance to ask any questions. I didn't, Anyway, that all being said, I'm sorry I was late for that, by the way, but the grandkids come first. I'm sorry. This has been discussed by us. This has gone through the DOT, and they have approved this to go along with what they're planning for Stone Road and the highway come 2025 or 2026, whenever they get to it, correct?
Yes, sir. We have seen or received the correspondence from
The DOT.
DOT that they will include this in that project, all stemming from where we go.
Okay, and I wanted this clarified because I had a number of calls on this issue. People that know me in that area, even though it's not my district, and they didn't like it. And I said, I'm sorry, I wasn't to that part of the discussion, but now I do understand. So thank you very much for that. I appreciate it.
Nancy?
Unfortunately, it is my district, and I have been getting calls. The neighbors are not too happy about some of that going on. They feel that the main problem is Renard's driveway being right where it is. And I take that intersection, well, not all the time. I probably take C more than I take the highway, but people drive like idiots. I mean, you go to the middle, you stop, you wait, you know, whatever the case may be. It's not that it's that big. The people that live down that area, they're all complaining about the 45. They don't mind the 45 during the school year, but they don't feel like it's necessary for the rest of the time. I'm gonna have to vote no mainly because my constituents, it's not gonna bother me much one way or the other, but you know, it's more of a people driving situation than it is a road situation. You know, it's when you can't think stupid.
David?
Yes, I guess, okay, I sit in the Highway Safety Committee for several years. And it came to our highway safety in August. It was then sent to a subcommittee, more or less, DOT, Renard's, the other individuals that were mentioned. The Southern Door Schools was not included in that meeting. I called someone in charge of the busing yesterday, and he wasn't even aware that had happened. He didn't know the speed limit was coming up. Now, that's one individual, but he used to head the busing for Southern Door. Looking at this, I talked to people that use this intersection, and it's definitely a concern of mine that you have the highway traffic, the Highway 57 traffic, that doesn't yield to anyone as it enters that driveway of Renard's. You're going to be sitting at that stop sign, and someone traveling 65, 70 is approaching. Let's say you're heading north and you're sitting at that stop sign. You got to be watching before you pull out. You got to be watching for someone heading north on 57, turning through that median and heading to the driveway. It's pretty darn hard to be watching everything. And I'm very familiar with maybe not this intersection, but County D, County Y in my area. Pleasant Ridge is right between those. People cross that median without, not so much at Y, but at D and at the county line road. Many of them do not stop. They go through, they turn off the highway, heading to DK, they pull right into traffic. I've taken the shoulder on both sides of the road to avoid accidents at the county line. Here you're inviting people to travel at maybe a high speed. If they turn off the road, they're not going to be looking at the people pulling out from the stop sign. They may not even be able to see those. It's definitely a real concern for me. Talking about the history of this, you know, I haven't looked to find the map, but when this was first designed, the driveway that you see at the upper level of the picture was where the old Renard store was. That was the driveway that was there. Somewhere the county must have given them permission to put this driveway opposite of Cloverleaf Road, right at that intersection. That created way more conflict than when they were turning at the other location. Any projects that there are all kinds of, I was on the town board at the time. We talked about Y, we talked about D, county line, whether Cedar Road could have access. We were denied that. Oh no, you can't do that. You got to have certain locations and direct all your traffic to those. They're talking about a J turn at Stone Road. It's likely to happen. This is totally contrary to what I've experienced with the DOT and other times, working with one business only to give them the access that they need. Dykesville cried for access. No, it wasn't there. The drive-in in Dykesville has great business. People learn to turn off the road and get there. It was the same in Brussels. So many situations. I remember John Ninus and I working on behalf of the highway department to have access at the county road right there by at the South Shop. XC, thank you. And there's no way they provide it to us. You go to H, you go to Stevenson Pier. Nope, county can't have that. This situation, we've got something really dangerous that they have opportunity with the J turns that they're putting in on those other two roads. And instead of that, they're going through this process. I will be voting no. And just a question on this is the vote on the speed limit is really what the resolution talks about. It doesn't talk about this, but with that vote, we're approving this as well, or we have no say in this.
Basically,
The speed limits today.
Yes.
We can go back and we can talk with DOT on design, but.
And as Nancy said, I mean, I've had people say this, they don't like the speed limit either. They're fine with it in front of Southern Door. But this is, the years on the highway safety, we've done speed studies in many locations, and always the DOT seems to say traffic travels the speed that they're comfortable with if you're not there to enforce, and that's the situation we have here.
Todd?
My only question was, because I did get some questions on this also, as to who was involved in the decision making and who was the interested parties that weighed in. I thought Southern Door, or maybe I misunderstood, but was Southern Door at the seat, at the table?
Southern Door School was not at this.
They were not. Okay, then I
They were involved. This question has come up to the Highway Committee for a lot of years, a lot of different times, and it's come to the Highway Safety Commission a lot of times. And it was a communication made probably, it wasn't long after I became patrol super, probably was in, right after, not too long after the highway was put in. The school was at the table, Renards were at the table at that time. And at that time, the school was going to ask their drivers to go to where it was a controlled intersection, a longer intersection where buses could stage, could see traffic, being Stevenson here in Stone Road. That is the point where they've tried to reroute their traffic. But they have no say on the kids, and they can recommend us like everything else. They can recommend, but who uses it and who doesn't.
Just for clarification, though, this is not a Renard's proposal. This was a traffic safety item that came up. We had discussions with DOT as a county, as we traditionally do. Renard's was pulled in just based off the final design that was put together by us and DOT in terms of recommendations. Just because they were in discussions with DOT on their future expansions at that site. But in terms of our process of doing the analysis, it was with going through traffic safety and working with the DOT even prior of doing Renard. So I just want to clarify that. So it's not, we went through that process of having those discussions and put that together and shared that. In hindsight, we can go back and share what's before you today is really the speed. We can go back and have discussions with the stakeholders. If we want to get the school involved and get more input, we can definitely do that. But again, this was in terms of the discussion of the DOT. Again, part of it's the timing issue. So the DOT is doing the J turn. They're willing to include this as part of that design if we're willing to agree on the design of this intersection. They have a window of opportunity probably within this year that they can still incorporate that design and include it within the cost. Otherwise, they will move on and not include it. So, and that's just the DOT in terms of how they work with us in terms of that. It's not negative. I'm just saying the window of time that we have.
Okay, so I have a question, because I'm quite confused. Maybe it's a point of order or whatever. This has nothing to do with what the resolution is.
Correct. That's what I'm trying to tell.
So why don't we bring this back as a separate whatever if it's discussed again, because this is not what we're talking about in front of us.
That's what I'm trying to, yeah, I agree with you. I'm trying to separate the issues. That one's the intersection design, but part of it is the picture of the corridor that the DOT is working on the overall corridor design. So we can bring back the intersection, but what's before you today is the speed between those two intersections that have been identified.
Okay. So does the 5 people or 6 people who want to talk, are they talking about the resolution in front of you, or are you talking about this intersection? Because I want to end the conversation on the intersection. That's not what we have in front of us. Okay, Joe.
I get the impression that the reduction of the 45 was kind of contingent on that design. Right?
It's a portion of it.
Yeah, so they kind of do go together.
Okay, but that's not what we
Right.
have in front of
Right.
us. So if what we have in front of us is incorrect, we need to table this or bring it back when it's correct and join together, or we need to vote on the resolution and this comes back some other time. That's all I'm trying to get to, because it doesn't make any sense to have this conversation, because that's not what the resolution is. Correct? I mean,
Well, go either way. I mean, they are intertwined. The speed, the request for the speed is related to the design of that intersection. So I don't have a legal issue with discussing both topics, but it can be limited to, I mean, the request before the board is the speed.
because we also have amendments now being made to the resolution, so if we're doing amendments that for something that doesn't exist in the resolution.
An improper amendment to the ordinance would be to change the design of this intersection. Any amendment to the ordinance would be strictly related to speed.
Okay. So we have an amendment motion. Let's take the precedence over the conversation. So Hugh?
I pressed the amendment button by accident.
There we go.
Okay. All right. That helps. Thank you.
And my order to speak was also relative to intersection, so I did stop that back electronically if I could.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, so we'll go back to, here we go. Number 1, Mr. Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to say that I'm gonna also vote no to this.
Dave Engelbert.
I must have pushed the second time also.
Okay.
I could continue, but that's okay.
Okay. Bob?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to point out that I find it a little ironic, and I'm trying to resolve the two. There is a serious speed issue in Bailey's Harbor that was alluded to in one of the letters that we received by the Max Welton Braes Golf Course in the south end of Bailey's Harbor. We have a dangerous intersection. There was a fatality there this year already. It's kind of blind with the curve, and it seems like the state isn't giving us any kind of action to do something positive, and here they're doing something that almost seems like maybe overreaching. I don't know. So it's just a comment. I know that it's part of why your job is hard to try to reconcile these different things. But I guess being from Bailey's Harbor and representing that district, we're not getting any kind of attention up there. And this almost seems like maybe it's getting too much attention. I don't know, although I know this intersection is dangerous as well. So thank you for hearing me out and just, keeping that other situation in mind as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Dale?
I'm not sure where this falls, in which section, but one of the questions that I have is when we look at this, it seems like there's traffic that's coming from the north and being able to turn, and you can go right, left, or straight. Is that correct? Why can't you move the Renard back to where they were so that you can't go right straight in?
Yeah.
I mean, it seems to me that's a real group, and if you could just get some of that traffic out of there now, they may not be happy. That may be the problem, but I'm just wondering if that was thought about, talked about?
What I was going to see, because we are incorporating a lot of discussion in the intersection, is maybe to postpone the whole discussion, bring them back together as a topic. With some of the feedback that was presented today, rather than having the board vote on a speed amendment that it is so intertwined with this intersection.
There's no rush to get this speed changed now.
No, the DOT was just looking for some sort of a commitment. So they could move forward with their process.
Dave?
So as a person that drives this neighborhood back and forth many, many times during the week, I will tell you that if you expand, no, I'm not against expanding the 45 through there. I mean, there's a wide variety of logic behind it. But they don't follow the 45 around the school to begin with. So there is no way the people are going as fast as they are leaving the highway going to the school and being anywhere close to 45 by the time they still get there. To that road intersection that we have unfortunately gotten quite tied into. I deal with in the morning an awful lot of parents, children, grandparents, buses that ignore the lights, the signs that are there now. So the only thing, you keep mentioning the school. Right now we have a month and a half of overlap with the wonderful tourism that is continuing to ignore those same sets of roads as well. And I don't have a problem personally voting on the 45 right now. I understand that doing this change is integral to that 45 being in existence or recognized as going that route. But I quite often have always wondered why Renard's was ever allowed to put their driveway right where it is. It is not a common transaction anywhere within the state system, the county recommendations, none of that. And I find myself, if I want to even go through that neighborhood, paying extreme attention, regardless of what time of day it is, regardless of what day of the year it is, because for whatever reason, they're not paying attention to what they're doing. If it's children driving, parents driving, grandparents driving, buses don't exactly follow the rules either. Tourists with their 45-foot long camper on the back that finds out they can't figure out how to get off of 42 south or northbound in a way that actually gets them out of the lane. For me, if we can vote on the 45, I'd be happy with that and bring back the other topic. But the other topic is we already got a lot of discussion now, but I think it is a important item.
Thank you. Hugh?
Yeah, that's when I want to electronically suck back because it was about the intersection, and I just want to. I agree with Mr. Indigo about Supervisor Indigo that we should just have this as a separate one. But I agree with him about the intersection, about that driveway.
Okay. Go ahead, comment.
Please.
Oh, David, go ahead.
I wanted to make it clear. You can put it to 45. They are not going to follow it, but it gives you an enforcement tool.
Okay. Go ahead. If you don't mind, I guess my preference would be to send it back to committee and let us have a discussion. There is a timing issue with the DOT in terms of what to do with that intersection. And again, I guess what we need, well, let's be honest, there's a lot of design issues here. So how can we fix it to make it safe without closing it? Might be now, and maybe some people are gonna say, well, why don't we just close it? Well, that's a decision, that's a policy decision, but you know, from our standpoint, you have a viable business, plus you have schools and all that stuff that are actually using that intersection. So an option could be to close it, but you're gonna have an economic impact, and I don't know if that's thing. So the next step is how can we design that intersection so it's safer? Again, I don't think what we bring back will ever be ideal. But again, I think what we'll try to do is talk with DOT about some of your concerns and see if we can modify design. Maybe you change that to a yield, so at least they have to yield and slow down. So that way they know there's not traffic going there. But ideally, there's no, if you look at the speed, the stopping distance, and like that, we're never going to have an ideal situation there. So how can we design it so it's safe to accommodate what we're trying to accomplish versus closing it or otherwise? And plus, how can we take advantage of DOT's willingness in this case to work with us to address this intersection? And I know, Bob, you're frustrated in that part, but this is a situation where they're doing Stone Road. And since they're doing Stone Road and this is part of that overall corridor, they're willing to include it within this window of time. Right now, this year, they're looking for us to endorse the design and they're willing to work with us. So if you recall some of the other stuff, they got feedback where they were not cooperative with us. They heard that, and now they're trying to be cooperative with us on our behalf, asking them. So I'm trying to make sure that we're building that partnership. So I asked, let us send it back. We'll take back some of your comments. We'll bring it back as a package as far as the speed and trying to make that intersection better. But I just want to be honest. We're not going to solve every question that you guys are bringing up. It's got to be, how can we make this the best design given the circumstances that we have?
And I would prefer to see the actual design of their intent for a stone road. You know, that's helpful to pay attention to all this at the same time as well.
David Engelbert?
Yes. Just for information purposes, there's only, talking with the director of busing yesterday, there's only one bus that turns at that intersection, one that was going south on Cloverleaf Road. All their other buses go up to the Stone Road intersection or south to Stevenson Pier. Another driver also told me, just, you know, we try to put stop signs in place, and I'm respecting what Ken says to delay this, but just I needed to mention that bus driver has said he's had to stop at that intersection because there were enough cars leaving Renards that they entirely blocked DK. And they can't get through. So there's a stop sign there, but people continue to pull out.
Right.
Right.
So again, just with any circumstance, you design to what you hope 90 or 95% of the population logically drives and hopefully follows those rules. You cannot, unfortunately, govern the 5% that choose not to follow the rules or make unsafe conditions. So the best we can do as a county board is look at it in terms of how can we design this as safe as possible, but also understanding, just like other intersections, there are individuals who are not following either good safety practices or pulling out the intersections, that type of thing. So I understand that comment, and we'll, I guess, again, if it's okay with the county board, let us go back. We'll talk with, I guess, the DOT again in terms of the comments you brought up. We will reach out to the school just to let them know also what we're trying to accomplish and get that feedback. We would have time to bring that back to the Facilities and Highway Committee, and then we'll have this hopefully coming back. Because again, part of it is a timing issue with DOT. They are in the process of letting the project out, so there is a time sensitive issue on our point. And if we defer it, then we can come back, but then we got to pay for it. So let's try to take advantage of the opportunity of the window. But if it doesn't work out, it's not going to, you know, be the end all.
So what do we? Go ahead, Joel.
You're not going to live yet. Was there, just regarding this, was there a conversation about omitting access to the highway from there and forcing everybody to Stone Road on their new project?
Yes. In other words, close it. Yes.
Do that.
Again, you're
force the Stone Road.
Huh?
Make it all a Stone Road. You got time. You got space to do things there. Dad's shaking his head.
But okay, this.
I made this comment.
Well, just remember, just remember though, there's an economic impact. So this, if I would say we're going to move the ferry line somewhere and we're going to change your thing.
Do it.
They have, right? No, I'm just, again, I think we have to respect our businesses, right? So, and again, I'm not advocating just for Menards only, but whatever we make a decision, we have, just like we did for, just like we're doing for by Culvers, right? What would be the best solution for that? Did we do that?
Those are different. Those are apples
I
and
guess,
oranges,
but those unique economic impact. So I guess I'm trying to say we have to balance all that in our decision-making process. So I guess just have that respect, just because again, I'm sure Renards is, if they're not listening, then they'll hear about that. But I think this as us representing them as a business, but also our residents, that we do the best approach to this decision. So.
So what do we have to do?
Well, we have to take some action, whether we, if the request is to send it back to committee for further consideration with the intersection design, and that's what we need to do. We take no action to advise. So it would be a motion to
refer back to committee.
Refer back to committee for consideration with the design of that.
Okay.
And stone. And stone.
Bob?
Refer back to committee.
Oh, already done.
Oh no, we got the motion from.
Okay. Hold on.
There we go.
There we go. Okay.
Okay. Motion.
Okay, so the motion's gone.
Motion by Bob, second by Joel.
Motion by second by Joel. Okay. So we have a motion and a second to refer back to committee. Okay. By voice vote, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you for your.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ed.
Consideration.
Thanks, Ed. Any special reports? Business, any oral committee reports? Go ahead.
So spoke last week about the aging infrastructure that we currently have and the thing and like radios and things that we need to do before we get to the complete rebuild. So that should be coming back to public safety hopefully soon. Some recommendations and some things that we're hoping to get done in preparation for the big build out.
Okay. Dave and Gort?
No comments.
No, okay. Okay. Any review committee minutes? Vouchers, claims and bills? Announcements. Our next county board meeting is October 24th at 9 a.m. Did you have anything? To add? With that, a motion to adjourn would be in order. All in favor? Aye. Thank you, everyone.